Hello YouTube, welcome to your 6th C++ tutorial. In this tutorial I will be explaining how white space does not matter and proper spacing. Now when I say proper, as far as the compiler is concerned, it doesn't matter, but typically there's kind of like a standard of how you should space things out just to make it easy to read, and so other programmers, if they look at your code later on, they don't just totally get annoyed and freak out because you didn't space it the way they're used to and it looked too complicated. So basically this is the code from the last tutorial. Now the code from the last tutorial, let me open up. Here's what it looked like all nice and spaced out, and here's what it looks like all cluttered up. Basically what I did is, like, this right here was spaced out, and on a new line it was tabbed, and I deleted all that white space. And so everything, I still have the semicolons separating the different procedures, I guess you could call it. I can't remember what they're called offhand. For some reason I just forgot. I cannot think. Alright, anyways, I have these all separated, so all the syntax is still correct, but I just don't have things. Remember how I said you should have each one on its own line just for readability, and that's typically how it's done. Well, I undid all of that, so I want to show you when you try to compile and run this, it still runs just like the other program did. So I just wanted to prove to you that white space doesn't matter. But typically what people do, they're not too picky about the include and then the using namespace STD spacing. Some people, I've seen it group them, some people space them out. Typically what I do is I space that, so the includes will be all in their own little group using namespace STDs in its own little area group, I guess you could call it. Now int main, whenever you have functions, they should always be all the way to the left, just like the includes and such. So right after the opening brace, I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and enter twice. A lot of times they leave one space in the main program. It really doesn't matter. It's personal preference. So now I want to go ahead and separate all of this stuff, including this last curly brace. Okay, so now I have everything on its own separate line. Oops. So now everything, it's looking a little easier to read. These are called statements. That's what they're called. I couldn't, for some reason I had lost it. So I have each statement on its own line. So there's one more thing you should do just for readability, is you should hit the tab key. And basically, if things are tabbed, that's part of a group. So since these two things are tabbed, and then what you do is you look up to the next thing that is not tabbed. Well, the next thing that isn't tabbed, that's all the way over, is this main, okay? So basically, if you tab something, that means it's a part of something else. So it's kind of like children and then their parents. This is kind of like their parents, and this is like their children. You know, they're a part, they come from their parents, kind of. Don't read too much into that. But basically, this is kind of like the cereal, and this is the box. Okay, the cereal is located in the box. This stuff is part of the main function. You tab it out. Just keep watching the rest of my tutorials. You'll begin to understand this. I also wanted to show you one more thing. If you don't feel like having a million insertion operators, say you're putting more endls, and then you're saying maybe test, you're putting another test, this is a test, okay, whatever. Say you wanted to put a string of characters, so a sentence, and you wanted to separate a couple lines and then test, okay? Let's just compile it just so you can see what happens. So it has hello world, okay, and it's 2 lines down. There's 1, 2, 3 spaces in between because this one takes care of the rest of the hello world line. So this is kind of, these two things are grouped, okay, and then it says this is a test. Notice that I didn't have an endl. Usually it's good programmer practice to end your lines. You could start off something else with endl, but it's typically a good idea to put them at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and, well, I'll leave that for now, whatever. So say you want this to be separated, hello world and test, this is a test. how about we change this to goodbye world? Okay, well, hello world and goodbye world. Okay, we don't want them in the same line. They're the same statement. That's kind of weird. So what we can do is let's enter this onto a new line for right now. Now let's end this statement, okay? We want this to be its own statement. So now what we want to do is we want to have another cout, and this one is goodbye world. I just want to show you that this will do the same exact thing. So basically, you can have as many cout instances as you want. You're not only limited to just one. So what we could even do is could have cout and L. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. So let me go ahead and take out all 4 of them, and let me just copy this 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let me compile and run, and it does the same thing. Once again, it doesn't matter. You can have as many couts as you want. Another thing that I like to do is I'll take out cout and I'll space this out. The only thing is you have to delete your semicolon. Now this may be getting a little confusing, a little ahead of myself, but basically what this does is it's still part of this statement, but I just moved it down to a new line, and then I kept all of these brackets in line. So I just want to show you it'll all work. And it is legal because, like I said, white space doesn't matter as far as the compiler is concerned. It's just for our own readability. So once again, if you separate a thing down, it's just keep note that this is still part of this cout statement. So you only have one semicolon. You do not need to have a semicolon on every single line, but you need to have a semicolon after every time you end a statement. Well, this statement takes up 2 lines, so I ended it. I'll actually just space it out so you can kind of get an idea. So I just wanted to clarify that, and if that makes sense to everybody, just go ahead and continue on to my next tutorial. If it doesn't, go ahead and rewatch it or leave a comment, and hopefully this makes sense to all of you. Thank you.